Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Steelmint Engage 2.0. We are into the third day of our 5-day webinar series. Through Engage 2.0, Steelmint aims to reach out to industry leaders to understand their perspectives on current issues and challenges in the steel and related industries so that our clients can have a better understanding on how each sector is likely to pan out in the short to medium term. Your hosts for the webinar this evening are my colleague Lisa Shukul and myself, Madhumita Mukherjee, editor, Steelmint.
We would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed sponsors, NMDC, JSW Steel, and Tata Steel.
In today's webinar, we will discuss what are the key sectors driving Indian steel demand in the medium to long term. Our guest speaker this afternoon is Mr. Ranjan, Dhar, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India. India's total steel consumption is at around 115 million tons. However, times are rather uncertain at this juncture against the backdrop of the global geopolitical crisis, the unprecedented rise in coking coal, nickel, ferroalloys, and other raw material prices, record high crude and bunker prices, and the ensuing high freight. What is the scenario with regard to the chip shortage? How has the demand been so far? What factors will drive consumption in these troubled times? What lies in store for the Indian steel mills? We will seek answers to all these queries and many more in this session. But without delaying any further, I introduce our honored guest for the evening, Mr. Ranjan Dhar. I welcome you to speak, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Madhumita. Thank you, Nitish. Happy to be here. Thank you for calling me. Yeah, so demand outlook, I think I'll give a brief on that. That is a topic. I think on a lighter note, the challenge everybody is grappling with today is the supply outlook rather than demand outlook. But nevertheless, the topic that has been given to me, I will cover what are my quick thoughts on the subject. So what I will do is I will probably run through a quick presentation, which is of just few slides, just to give a perspective of how we look at the demand outlook in the medium term to short to medium term. So I'll just share my. I hope it is visible now.
It is.
So yeah. So we all know, I will not talk too much about the obvious. We know that we all seen the Indian economy is growing very strong. All the indicators, whether it is PMI, GST collection, GDP growth, which is projected, monthly auto production out after the recent issues on the chips, is the chip issue is also getting settled, and more every month the auto producers are producing more cars. To give you a sense of number, just as a benchmark, the largest car producer, Maruti Suzuki, the schedules that we have from them is that in this quarter, January to March, they will be producing on an average around 30 to 40,000 more cars per month as opposed to what they were producing in the last quarter. So that, along with the commercial vehicle, along with the yellow goods, all the sectors as lead indicators are doing pretty well as we speak. And the outlook continuing into the next financial year continues to be very robust, very strong. And we'll come to that, what are the sectors which are pulling these. So Indian steel outlook, as you know, just as a quick reference, I'm sure many of you are already aware that in last calendar year, India produced around 118 million ton. It is projected that in the current calendar year, India will produce close to about 125 million ton, with a consumption of around 106 last year, which will grow to around 111, 112. I think it will be more with the view that we have, because if the GDP will grow around, above 7-8%, then I'm sure that the consumption growth of the steel will be far beyond 111 million metric ton. So various initiatives which have been taken by the government in the last year and in this year and the year before that, that is actually fructifying now, and that is making the steel demand very, very robust. Make in India initiative, along with the Atmanirbhar initiative, I think Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative was very, very well received. I think it is a big success all across many sectors, and that is pulling also the steel demand. Urban housing is also, in fact, we were discussing just yesterday that along with ISA and other agencies, we are trying to build a model prototype house made out of steel for Prime Minister's initiative on the housing, rural housing, and also the urban housing. Smart city projects, these are developing. Production linked incentive for many sectors has a compounding impact on the economy and thereby on the steel consumption. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, this is actually keeping the masses healthy, keeping the workforce healthy, which is increasing the productivity of the manpower in the country, and that is also really good for the economy and also for the consumption. National steel policy, why I mentioned it over here, is that there is a policy framework, and that is it is very good to have a policy framework. It gives direction to the steel industry, both on the production side and also on the consumption side, where India needs to go to. So that also, keeps it. It is basically a target that everybody works towards. And therefore, it also is a good initiative taken by the government to give a direction for the steel production and the steel demand, which is like a target that we are all working towards achieving it. India is obviously at an advantageous situation. Building and construction, rural housing, urban housing. We know about these initiatives. Infrastructure, there's a significant outlay for infrastructure expenditure towards infrastructure, which has been put up in successive budgets. In the last budget, we know significant increase of 35.4% capital expenditure towards it, 7.5 lakh crore, total around 10.68 lakh crores, which was done, which is around 4.1% of the GDP. Huge number, should pull up the steel demand in a pretty strong way, and part of it we are already witnessing. Engineering and packaging industry is also very strong. Automotive demand, as I said earlier, there's a pent-up demand which is already there, unmet demand due to chip shortage of last year. All the auto producers are sitting on huge backlog of orders. Even if there is some disruption due to the current oil prices and all that, I was personally doing a check with all the auto EMs. They told us that the pipeline is so strong that even if there is some momentary disruption due to high fuel prices, they will use that time to clear their backlog of orders. So it continues to be pretty strong, both for the passenger car and also for the commercial vehicle. The steel demand, the sector that are driving the steel demand, as we have touched upon earlier. Infrastructure, National Highway Network is expanding 25,000 kilometers, as we have seen in the budget. In the current the next financial year is targeted to be achieved. 20,000 crore has been allocated for that. Gati Shakti is a mega umbrella initiative under which everything will be fast tracked, and I think that this is also an excellent initiative which will speed up the government's intervention and government's initiative towards achieving these goals. Construction and housing, 48,000 crore is allocated under PM Awas Yojana. 80 lakh houses will be covered under this scheme. So these are all the sectors wherein in the micro markets of India, whether this will be a consumption drivers, and we are already witnessing a part of it. In fact, our initiative that we are launching, many of you would have seen sometime in the media, that we are expanding our, from AMNS perspective, our steel hypermart, which is a unique initiative by AMNS, wherein we are taking steel directly by the company managed outlets into the small, medium cities across the length and breadth of the country. And we have seen that whenever steel is made available, then the steel intensive growth, both on infrastructure, construction, housing, happens in an accelerated way. And that is what is needed, because we know, we have still spoken about this enough, that the penetration of steel is still very low in the country, 70, 72 kgs. And for India to grow that penetration, availability of steel is also at right places is also very critical. And AMNS has a defined initiative, aligned initiative of Hypermart to reach the steel where it is needed, so that the growth of the steel consumption can happen. Renewable, India is again at an advantage position, because we have got a lot of natural resources, be it solar power or wind, and a lot of initiatives have been put in under PLI scheme also by the government, and also the mega investments being planned by the private sector, including our own group companies, in expanding the renewable space in the country. This will again be a huge demand puller for the steel products. At AMNS also, we are expanding our steel production and also bringing in newer products which are direction towards renewable energy, be it on the wind side, on the hydro side, or also on the solar side. Electric vehicle, all of you know, this is a subject which is expanding, and now with the current crisis, all the countries are talking about that they need to be Atmanirbhar in their fuel, in the availability of fuel. So I think the acceleration towards electric vehicle will be faster now, and probably this disruption will accelerate towards the movement towards electric vehicle. So the impact category, the steel end-use demand, we have seen 17% rise in the capex of steel-intensive sectors like railways and infrastructure. These sectors contribute to 30% of the total steel demand. So this will be having a multiplier effect on the steel demand. There are some other, aspects like the tariff and duty, and the extension of, favorable custom duty for steel scrap import will also benefit the secondary sector of the steel. So all in all, the way forward, as we look at it, that globally strong demand and controlled production in China should keep the supply-demand balance more in favor of the demand. The geopolitical instability is there, as we all know. We are witnessing it today. But I think all in all, the geographies that will remain stable, including India, will perform better even in this turmoil, is our view. We need continuous innovation in the steel space, which everybody is doing, towards moving towards value-added steel, more innovative products for each consuming sector. That's being already done. Many steel companies worldwide are doing it, including AMNS and also our competition. Major steel consumers globally will be looking at Indian steel as the demand grows. Carbon neutrality is a big topic which is occupying the mind space of the steel mills globally, because this is a reality. It has a lot of challenges in it in terms of cost of building those capacities, and I think all the steel companies are working towards it. Strong demand from auto and infrastructure, which will continue in this year. Then growth in some other sectors like grain silos, renewable, we have already talked about. India has the potential to become a large-scale steel exporter also, after catering to steel demand domestically. A lot of people even do ask me that with the current turmoil, what will be India's position on exporting to the geographies which need more steel. I always say that I think the steel mills in India would first focus on the needs of the steel users in India. And if at all there is some additional capacity available, that that we always export what is left after getting to the domestic demand. I do not see that in with the strong growth of consumption in India, where will have huge quantities to export. But as we are growing capacities in India, I think more and more steel will get exported out of India, not only in the commodity steel space, but also in the value-added steel space. I should also mention, and this is one topic which has been close to my heart for long, that India more and more will go towards a region wherein not only the steel will get exported out of India, but as Indian companies grow, for example, infrastructure companies like L&T grow, or Indian auto companies grow globally, when they expand globally, they grow globally, they will take the Indian steel with them. So I think that is another route in which the Indian steel can go, not into the international market, not directly, but as our Indian companies expand globally, our steel will also expand globally along with the Indian companies. Thank you. So that's all from me, a brief overview. Any questions, I'm happy to take.
Thank you, Mr. Dhar, for that very insightful presentation. We have a few questions from our side. As you rightly said, it's more the supply side that is, taking up a lot of mind space at this juncture. So, what has been the cost impact of the raw material inflation on Indian mills? I mean, in terms of cost of production, even if it can give in percentage terms if we do. And what are you doing at AMNS India to tackle the record high coking coal and other raw material prices?
So that's why I said at the start of the presentation that today we are grappling with a very volatile situation on the cost. So it is very difficult to put a single number or a static number to that. What is happening is whatever we're thinking of the cost impacts only 2 weeks back, it has gone through a metamorphosis, a sea change, a paradigm shift in just about 1 week or so. So we have to basically, what we are currently doing at AMNS, taking a step back and understanding what will be the total impact on the cost side, on the demand side, on the supply side, because this is not normal. And everybody has to understand this, that this is not a normal situation. This is not a normal cost escalation. This is a disruption. So we have to see, probably we have to wait for some time before we arrive at what will be the total impact, because any number that we give now might not be valid tomorrow. That is what we have seen is happening. So the impact is huge. We have seen coking coal price. We have seen gas. Yesterday, the gas price touched $80 on the spot market. So at that price, nobody can produce any steel. I don't know whether we can produce gold, but so I think these are uncertain times. We have to wait and see what will be the net impact before clearly arriving at a situation.
Right. I come to one of my favorite questions. I mean, where it's concerned to you. First is, to what extent has the semiconductor chip shortage, actually been assuaged? Number one, and secondly, and this is very linked to the raw materials question. There are strong indications that mills are keen to lock their prices in half-yearly contracts, auto contracts, going forward, because they don't want to take long positions, considering the volatile supply side issues. So will AMNS India do the same? I mean, have you stopped taking bookings for April deliveries where automotive steel is concerned?
No, sorry. Your first question was sorry.
To what extent has the semiconductor shortage been assuaged?
So semiconductor shortage, as we understand from our customers who are the auto OEMs, so it has not been fully addressed, but I would say that it has been addressed to the extent of our understanding is around 90 to 95%. So there is still some 5-7% wherein some shortages are happening, but our understanding is that it is not very significant now. So it is controllable, and so 5-7% could be an impact, but not beyond that.
Okay.
On the, I understand your question is whether we will be going for an automotive contract on a long-term basis. Our position has been yes, we will always go with a long-term contract for automotive. We have done this so far. Even when the new period arrives, we will go for the long-term contract. Now, obviously, our relationship with the auto people is very symbiotic. It is understanding each each other's needs. When there was when auto industry was in a situation due to COVID and all that, there were some commercial price increases which had happened naturally, which we had deferred at that point in time, if some of you recall. So now the steel industry is in a situation at the moment because of huge supply disruption which has happened globally. So we will be talking. We have not started those talks as of now, but we will be starting those talks with our OEM customers and see what is the right way in a understanding each other's position in settling those contracts. But we would like to keep those contracts long term.
No, actually, my question was whether you were looking to shift from half-yearly to quarterly contracts, because we heard that mills do not want to take longer positions now, considering the volatile raw material scenario.
From our perspective, we have not thought about it. Our position is that we always would like to not change the period of the contract because it does not work very well. But in our discussion, whenever we start a discussion with our auto customer, whatever is mutual comfort, whether we can look at some cost aspect outside the contract, or should we do a shorter contract, I do not know. The discussions have not started as yet. Whenever they do start, we will come to that.
Right.
But to tell you, as a position of our company, we do always keep long-term contract. Even our parent companies, be it ArcelorMittal or Nippon Steel, we do. So if you see what happened in Europe in 2021 and 2022, the auto contracts were honored, and there was a big steep increase in 2022. So it works that way. But we will be speaking to our auto customers and arriving at a mutually acceptable way forward.
Sir, so I have a question. What we understand is the platform for centers, infra push is the rupees 111 trillion national infrastructure pipeline, for the period 2020 to 2025. And, essentially energy, roads, railways, urban projects are estimated to account for the bulk of the projects, which is roughly at around 70%. So can you please elaborate on its impact at a macro level and its deep connection with the Indian steel industry?
So lot of these projects, in fact, if you broadly, we have to divide these projects, what is happening in this project. So in the construction of these infrastructure projects, we have to see how much part of these projects are done in a steel intensive way, because there is a element of concrete also in it. So today, for example, a lot of bridges, a lot of flyovers are being made also in concrete. And now the kind of steel industry which has matured in the country, and also the product that are available out of steel industry, we can do all of this in steel, not only from the steel industry's perspective, but also from the national perspective. Because if you, for example, you make a bridge in steel, you will be able to factory make it and put it into use in less than 1 month time or 2 months time, rather than waiting for the concrete bridge which takes years together to get it up and running. So I think if we have to speed up our infrastructure, this budget outlay up to 2025, you see what will be the multiplier effect on the Indian infrastructure space, Indian economy, employment generation, per capita income. If we are able to shrink that implementation from 5 years to even 4 years or 3.5 years, if we make it steel intensive and make it fast track. So that is what it will do. If you see, a lot of people say that we should take example of how the infrastructure development happened in China or we should not. But if you see any country world over which has fast-tracked its economic development, infrastructure development, it has happened only and only when they have gone in a steel-intensive way. It is one thing to say that I will, have a capital expenditure of 10 lakh crore or 12 lakh crores or 15 lakh crores, but how much of it is done in a steel-intensive way to fast-track it? So if you are able to fast-track it, you are able to get into the virtuous side.
All right, sir. And how instrumental is the PM Gati Shakti plan in driving the demand from infrastructure sector in the short to medium term, and how well is AMNSI placed, to tap on this opportunity?
Very well. So it is basically getting all the jigsaw puzzle together for things to match up and speed up. So I mean, in Gati Shakti project, AMNS is already using a lot of coastal movement. We are doing a lot of because this Sagarmala route, we have explored that very well, because we are sitting on the west coast. We are getting the iron ore from the east coast sea route to the west coast. We're taking steel back from the west coast, apart from international destination, into south of India, into east of India sea route. So we are using it pretty well. We will obviously are connecting it further as our capacity expansion happens in Hazira and also in the east coast. This will be more and more useful for even AMNS as a company.
How was demand so far in the Jan to March quarter? And what is your outlook on Q1 of the coming fiscal?
Very strong. In fact, we started, that December was a little weak. The first part of January was also a little weak, but we saw, even before all this turmoil happened, we saw a demand recovery happening in various sectors. Automotive was one, but even infrastructure. So what I said in the earlier part of my presentation, all these government initiatives which have been taken last year or year before that are coming into fructification now. Now, what has happened is, yes, with these disruptions, what will happen, because your projects have been done in, have been taken earlier. Even we have taken projects, or some of our customers would have taken projects. Now, this whole cost impact will be there. So we have to see how much we can pass on, how much they can pass on. So what will be a disruption due to that, we will have to see. But we had seen till now, before this turmoil, very strong demand recovery from all the sectors, barring few. Rural demand was still a little low. Tractor demand was still low, which is a deflection of the rural demand. But overall, other than that, we have seen a huge demand pull from all the sectors.
And what is your outlook on Q1?
Again, from all our customers, what we do is we take every month, we take a dipstick test from the top 5 customers in each of the consuming sector. So this is a process, and in that process, what we know, to be candid, this was done before the turmoil. Now we have to see, but this strong demand, our sense is it will continue, not only in the Q1, also into Q2 and Q3. This calendar year looks, from the demand side, very strong. Now, what will be the impact of this disruption, whether it will be positive or negative, we will have to see. I think it is early days, because I see a lot of articles and analysis written on this subject. But I think all of those are half-baked. We need to wait for some more time for the situation to emerge more clearly before we put a clear thought to that. Because otherwise, we will make error either on the positive side or on the negative side.
At this juncture, what is the outlook on export? Mills are seeing a lot of traction in terms of export bookings to Europe, but do you foresee major booking activity happening from other geographies too going forward, and the reasons for the same?
Yes, so because suddenly a supply chain has broken, which was coming from Russia and Ukraine into various parts of the world. So that is not there. So when that is not there, anybody who wants steel for various activities, be it construction or the activity that is broken, so immediately they need an alternate to that. So India has demonstrated to the world, and this should be told, that India does not only produce metric tons. India actually has established, Indian steel industry has established its position as one of the most advanced steel industry in terms of the quality of product that we make. So there is hardly any product which is made globally which is not made in India. There are various geographies in the world which make metric tons, but they do not make all the quality of the steel that the world needs. Today, India produces everything that probably a European country needs, or a Southeast Asian country needs, or even America needs. So there is hardly any product that is not available in India. The question already is that whether India has an appetite to cater to all that demand which has been disrupted. I think no, because our domestic consumption is also pretty strong. So a lot of demand will come directly. To answer your question, Madhumita, a lot of also demand will come indirectly. The demand, supposing a component is being used in Europe, and that demand is more. So the component guy in India would want more steel for the component to be exported out of India to Europe. So.
Right. And China is looking at exports seriously again. And does that make Indian mills worried?
Well, again, we have to see, because while there are a lot of murmurs and rumors, but the current position of China is that they don't want to make more steel, as opposed to what they have, the official position. I don't want to go by what is being talked about, but the official position is they don't want to make more steel as opposed to what they have made in 2021. So some amount of exports will be higher as opposed to what they have done in the last quarter, October to December, because there the production was very low. But whether it will be high from where it, to a historic high level of China, we'll have to see, because we have to also see that still quotas are in place in Europe and all that. It is not a very free run that you increase production and you start exporting suddenly overnight. So we have to see how it pans
out. Sir, and how do you foresee the domestic and export offers trending in Q1 FY23?
Trending in terms of price?
Yes.
I do not know. Price or any price these days, because the cost is totally out of the whack. So we have to see where the price will be. So these are changing. What was $1,000 yesterday is $1,200 today and $1,400 tomorrow. We have to see. These are very uncertain numbers, so it's not right to comment on what the price will be. So we'll see.
So do you expect some more price hikes to be in the offing?
If the raw material prices remain like this, obviously price have to go up. So as simple as that. Because at these price levels, there will be very many mills across the world which will not be viable to produce.
Exactly.
So I mean, you cannot, because there is a threshold to what level the steel price can go up. There's always a threshold then on how much of this cost push can steel mills absorb. So let us see.
Sir, I have a question. So, the government has started inviting applications from investors under the PLI scheme. And is AMNSI looking at any submissions under this policy? And to what extent will PLI ease imports of specialty steel into India?
So AMNSI is seriously, we are, as we have said, we are expanding our capacities, and we are also expanding our capacities in the products mentioned in the PLI scheme for steel. So definitely we'll be filing application. So these are good initiatives for investment to happen, for directioning the investment into the areas which India needs. For example, the electrical steel, for example, automotive grade steel, coated steel, and all that. So it is a very good initiative from that perspective. We obviously have to see how well it is implemented, how well but I have no reason to believe that it will not be implemented in the right way.
Mr. Dhar, you mentioned that AMNS India's expansions will include serving the renewable space. So could you elaborate further what kind of steel would you be manufacturing and the way forward for you all? renewable space?
Yeah, so in renewable space needs heavy plates for hydropower. It needs coated steel for solar, and it also needs heavy plates and plates for wind energy. So in all the three space, we have current capacity available, and we will be further growing these capacities. Even currently, those products we are supplying.
What is the current capacity, maybe?
Plate mill, our current installed capacity is 1.5 million ton. So, and coated, we have got a 2 million ton coated steel capacity, which we are expanding further.
Yeah. To what extent would it be? And could you quantify?
We will announce it at the right time.
And will your expansion, you're setting up a greenfield plant in Orissa, 12 million greenfield plant in Orissa. So will all your expansion, to what extent, will decarbonization goals be kept in mind? Would you be looking at any kind of, green steel making capacity?
Green steel and greener steel is an initiative which our parent companies are very closely, very aggressively propagating, and all our initiative for greenfield expansion will be conscious of that. Now, how much will be of that will be green steel, greener steel, we will announce at an appropriate time.
Fine. Specific questions from our attendees. We have one question from Milind Thosar, owner Ramdas Engineering and Consultants. He's asking, how can we compete in exports with China in terms of price and with Japan in terms of quality?
As I said, on quality, there is hardly any steel that any country makes and India doesn't make. So I don't think India has a challenge on competing with not only China, any other country on as far as the quality of the steel is concerned. In fact, India is at a higher position on the quality ladder as opposed to other countries. On the commercial, we have to. It is whenever you go into the international market, you have to compete commercially. Cost impacts are different for different countries. It will be very difficult because these are very disruptive times. So I do not know what are the disruptions which will eventually happen in China. What will be the impact on India? But we will see that.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. He wants to know where do you see export volume in the upcoming months amid the geopolitical tension. I think he means overall, India's overall export volume.
So whatever 15% India exports, the traditional geographies of Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Middle East, and Europe. And some small volumes into Africa, South America. So I do not see geographies beyond that because, as I said, I do not see the availability from the Indian mills for export market jumping up too much. Because it is not that today India is, if the domestic demand remains stable and if the domestic demand remains what it is today, I do not see there is an exponential volume increase which will happen for the export market. In fact, whenever Indian export has been higher in the excess of 20-30% are those months when India was hit by COVID and the demand disruption that happened in India. Only then India exported more, and thankfully those export markets were available for Indian mills, predominantly for the quality reason. The world over, customers can close their eyes and buy Indian steel without worrying about the quality.
Sir, we have a question from Mr. Milind Thosar. He's owner at Ramdas Engineering and Consultants. He's asking, how can we compete in exports with China with price and Japan with quality?
Okay.
We just answered this question.
I answered. So even with the Japanese supplier, we don't lag on quality. We are ourselves a partly Japanese company today. So.
And one more question, what industry subsectors will be, growing largely in terms of demand, with respect to a year-on-year basis, and if you can throw some light upon this.
I tried to cover that briefly in my presentation, but I think if I have to give where the predominant growth will happen, I think infrastructure, construction, automotive, as opposed to last year to this year, these are the sectors which will grow much higher in this year as opposed to last year.
Well, I think that was the last question we could accommodate for this afternoon. We have to bring this webinar to a close. Again, a big thank you to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Ranjan Dhar, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer at ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel India, and to our viewers for joining in. We would like to extend our gratitude to Ministry of Steel and Indian Steel Association for their valuable support. A big thank you to our sponsors again, NMDC, JSW Steel, and Tata Steel. This is Nitish Shukul and Madhumita Mukherjee signing off. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.